Hi everyone, Melissa here, artist in residence for Imagine, and today I'm going to be showing you a number of mixed media techniques that you can use with Goosebumps. I'm starting with some Bristol smooth paper, and I'm also starting with four stencils, two from Whimsy stamps and two from the Crafter's Workshop. Now the first thing I'd like to do is tape down my paper and my stencil so I don't get movement in either of those as I go. And then this is the dauber top Goosebumps instead of the spray, and I think this works best with the stencils. So I simply push down on the Goosebumps dauber top and get a nice resist effect when I use each of these stencils. The first stencil that I used was a Whimsy Stamps one called Splash, and now I'm using the dotted rounds from Whimsy. The next one I'll be using is the Cloud stencil from the Crafter's Workshop. This is a pretty popular stencil from them, and I really like it. And I think that the Goosebumps works really well with this stencil because it has, the wide open spaces for the clouds. Every time I do this, I then set the piece of Bristol smooth paper to the side to dry. And you could leave the stencil on and after it dries, go back and add more. However, I do not do that. That will give you more resist, so you'll see less discoloration under the paper. So the first technique I want to show you is using your inks. So I take Brilliance Pearlescent Sky Blue, I take Versamagic Sea Breeze and Versamagic Turquoise Gem, and simply use a sponge dauber to apply the ink to the Bristol Smooth cardstock with the Goosebumps applied. And then I take a paper towel to rub off any extra. The next technique is to use fireworks sprays. I start with Rosebud, Summer Sky, Grape Jelly, and I end with Bahama Blue. And I simply spray those onto the cardstock inside of this cardboard box so my spray doesn't go everywhere. And then I take a paper towel and soak up any of the extra spray. And you're going to see this is really pretty when I remove the paper towel. And again, I will take the paper towel and remove any ink that is on top of the cloud just simply by rubbing it off. Now for the next technique, I'm actually going to be using Versamagic and Brilliance inks again. I'll be using Mango Madness, Sunflower Yellow, and Rocket Red. And I'm going to add some water to my paper and then add some water to each of those inks and actually watercolor those inks onto the paper. You can do watercolor with this Goosebumps resist technique as well. And I actually make a little bit of a mistake here. So I add the ink to the paper and then I take a paper towel to absorb it. I would not do that because you're going to see I remove most of the color. The best thing to do is actually once you add the ink to the paper is to dry it with your heat tool, and then you won't remove so much color. So you'll see me do that now. So I'm basically going to repeat the method that I did at first, but again, instead of soaking all of that ink up with a paper towel, I will use my heat tool to dry that piece of cardstock there. And I simply heat it until it's pretty much completely dry, and then again I take my paper towel to remove any of the ink from the Goosebumps. Now the next method I'm going to show you is an alcohol ink method, and I will be using Copic inks for this. And I start with a blending solution and then simply add drops of my Copic ink to the Bristol cardstock. Now I will say with this technique that I believe the alcohol in the alcohol inks does chew up the Goosebumps a little bit. You don't have the same resist as you do with the water-based methods. However, you do get a resist technique, and I think it's really cool how you can still see those circles that I used for this particular card. And I simply dry the inks on there with my heat tool and blow them around a little bit, and then they dry pretty fast. Another thing I will say is it did leave, the alcohol inks are a bit sticky here, so I covered those alcohol inks up with some shimmer spray after to take the stickiness away. So you see I did 4 mixed media techniques to get 4 beautiful backgrounds for cards. I hope you enjoyed today's video and you would join us on Imagine for more great videos, tutorials, and techniques. Have a great day.